Thanks for listening to Leadership Level Up. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Williamson, and whether you are just starting your leadership journey or have led others for decades, this podcast aims to shine a spotlight on those who lead others and share their guiding principles that have made them great leaders. Welcome to Leadership Level Up. I'm your host, Jeff Williamson, where we talk about all things leadership here. I love talking to emerging leaders, veteran leaders, anybody in between. And today we have an emerging leader who I have known now almost a couple of years. It's great to have Ty Lewis here. Welcome to the show, Ty.
Jeff, thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, Ty has been a part of our Converge conference just this last fall. He was one of our speakers at a breakout session on emerging leaders, and then was gracious enough even the year before to come and just take it all in. So we know from that you love leadership, you love investing in other people. So we'll kind of unpackage that a little bit as we talk. But in case folks don't know you, let me just read a little bit from your bio so they'll know a tad of your story, and then we'll tell that a little bit more fully. So Ty is a transformative leader dedicated to empowering and shaping future-focused communities. With a foundation in speaking, real estate investing, coaching, and mentoring, he is making a lasting impact in many different areas. He is a consultant with Next Generation Consulting, and he also has completed a program called Think Like a Futurist. I want to hear more about that, which is a 6-module training for both senior and emerging leaders. So, man, just right there, I'm like, gosh, we could take the whole time up talking about that. So I know you love leadership as I do. And I love to start a little bit with like, hey, let folks know a little bit more of your story. So, those kinds of things, like when did you first have some folks that you thought, that's a mentor or a leader I want to emulate, or I've seen things in them that I want to do as I grow as a leader? What would be some of those come to mind?
Yeah. So the first one is actually my future father-in-law. We got to know each other back at my first job. So I used to work at Chick-fil-A in the Quad City area. And while I was doing that, I got to meet John, Michelle Clavon, and now I'm going to be married to Kate Clavon, who they own the Chick-fil-A here in Bradley Bourbonnais. So it's pretty cool, kind of a full circle moment. But John was my first kind of exposure to leadership and just seeing how Chick-fil-A took care of their employees, took care of their customers, and just really were intentional about the care and love. And I saw that day to day, with rather if he was at the store, rather if he came to some of my basketball games. I got the Chick-fil-A scholarship. He showed up at my school. So that's where it first started for me. It was just like, oh, wow, like, why are people so caring? Like, what is this thing of they're investing in me, they're investing in others? So that was kind of the foundational thing for me, seeing that. And that's led to, obviously, now I'm dating his daughter. But also I think it's...
Good call, by the way.
Thank you. Yes. It's been great. But I think it's like when I first started there, I really didn't know much about leadership, and having those mentors like my father-in-law, and I actually had another mentor named John Anderson, who I worked with at Quad City Bank and Trust. So it was a community bank in the Quad Cities. Yeah. And that kind of got me exposed to banking, but really same thing with him. Intentional, caring, loving. And I'm just like, man, like, why are you doing this? But it's just like, that's what leadership is when you care, love, go out your way, you're intentional about helping others, you're giving them resources. So I got those are just 2 mentors that really have made an impact in my life. There's many more, but I think those are the 2 that come to mind and have really laid a great foundation for what I'm doing now.
And as I heard you talk about both of them, what I was thinking is that as they poured into you, you started to realize, wait, they're doing these things that aren't about them. They're focusing outward on seeing something in me, encouraging me, giving me some insights or giving me some resources and going, hey, you maybe haven't seen this or heard this before, but let me walk you through this. And I love what you said about leadership, including care and love for the people around you. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people that I encounter, they're scared to talk about love in the workplace, right? Because their mind may go to not okay versions of that. But when it's authentic, caring, and interest in you and people that you work with, man, that has such a difference on the workplace and how we feel about showing up each day, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, even from the business, like numbers, profits, sales, like when you know your employees and you're investing in them and they know a little bit about you, like not just does the environment feel safe and you're vulnerable and you're getting things done because you know each other, you're increasing sales because people are happy that you're there. You're happy that you're there. Your coworkers are happy. Customers can see that you're happy. You're engaged. So it affects everything, right? If it's not there, it's going to affect sales. It's going to affect the morale. So yeah, like leadership, care, love. It's so important.
And I know we're both Gallup and Clifton Strengths geeks. I'll just say that now.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. But, as I track employee engagement and the research that Gallup does globally related to that, the last numbers I saw was, at least in the U.S., about 23% of the workforce consider themselves engaged or very engaged in their workforce. That's sad. That means basically 3/4 of the American workforce is kind of like, pays the bills. I'm not crazy about it. I don't love it, but it's okay. Doesn't hurt too bad. And I'm thinking, what a missed opportunity. Yeah. And I know you and I are both so passionate about the strengths approach and people being able to do what they do best the majority of the day, and what that does inside of us when we're not just drudging along doing things that we don't even enjoy or have a lot of aptitude for. That's the flip side of the strengths approach. And so I pay a lot of attention to that. And I think what you're talking about is so true. As people find some joy and value and love and respect in their workplace, it changes the outcomes. It really does. It really does. So one of the things that I also wanted to hear a little bit about your story too is that you started as a student at Black Hawk Community College here in Illinois and did your first 2 years there, and then continued your education at St. Ambrose University and did a finance degree there. But there's more to that story, I know. So I'd love for you to tell them a little bit more about, hey, how did that happen? And how did you land those two places and the whole process of that becoming a part of your story?
Yeah. So back in my high school year, spring break, or even just in that season of life, I remember I was trying to figure out what school I wanted to go to. And I was very involved in high school. I was in marching band. I was in basketball. I was in like all AP classes, National Honor Society. So I was around some of the best of the best. And a lot of them were going to the bigger schools in Illinois and Iowa. So Illinois, Northwestern, Iowa State, Iowa, Western Illinois. And for me, like I didn't do so hot on my ACT and SAT scores. So
me either,
I couldn't,
brother.
yeah. And I was really like bummed out because I couldn't get into some of those schools that my friends were getting into. So I remember I'm from Georgia. My mom actually graduated from Georgia State. So I remember spring break, I actually went down to Georgia and was planning to visit Georgia State and see about their programs and how I can get in and stuff. So the day that I was supposed to take my visit there, it poured rain, and we lived about my mom lived about 30, 40 minutes from Georgia State. So it was pouring rain. She wasn't doing it like super hot that day. So it was kind of just like, let's just reschedule it. Let's figure out something else. So I was kind of bummed out. I was like, man, like I would love to do that, but we'll figure out something else. And maybe I just don't do a visit and I do it. So then fast forward, once spring break ended, I came back to school, and I remember one of my counselors that I was talking to about school, he was actually my basketball coach. He was telling me like, hey, like, have you thought about Black Hawk Community College? And I was like, like, I don't really want to go to community college. Like people, like, I don't want to stay in the area. Like I'm trying to get to the bigger schools, like where I can be around my friends. And I remember he told me, he was like, hey, like you're actually going to graduate top 10% of the high school in your class. And Black Hawks has a scholarship program that allows top 10% students in that area to go to Black Hawk on a full ride presidential scholarship. So all books, all classes covered.
But that had your attention.
It did.
Yeah. You're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
So then he told me that, and everything, like God laid everything out from there, because I really do think it wasn't meant to be for me to go to Georgia State. And that visit got canceled for a reason. And I was meant to hear what my counselor was telling me about, because then about a week later, I got it in the mail. Hey, like if you're a top 10 scholar, like if you want to go to Black Hawk, fill this out, do that. So that led to me going to Black Hawk Community College, which was one of the best decisions of my life, because while I was there, I actually got scholarships from Chick-fil-A, from my foundation at my school, and other scholarships in the community. That led to me being able to not only have the full ride cover, but I got scholarship money and Pell grants and financial aid.
Sure.
So that was like cash. So
Covered everything.
Plus, I had like a couple $1,000s in my bank account once the refunds came back. While I was still getting involved at Black Hawk, student government, I was doing other clubs. I was getting involved in, going to the sports, intramurals, stuff like that. What that did for me, though, was, one, get me more connected to the area, and two, allowed me to get a manager position at Chick-fil-A, because now I was working at Chick-fil-A in high school. That allowed me to get another internship kind of in Chick-fil-A, where I was in marketing, but also was a manager and shift lead. That 10x my leadership journey, because now I was actually managing people my age, plus in high school, where it was just like a year ago. It is.
That's hard to manage peers.
It is. It is. But I learned all that because I went to Black Hawk. And then also in that story, my dad. So I moved up here with my dad in 2013. So my mom lives in Georgia. So that's why I went to Georgia to go visit Georgia State and stuff. But when I was moving with my dad up here, I was like, okay, do I stay at home? Do I go, they had some dorms on campus at the community college. My dad and a whole bunch of other families was like, hey, go to those dorms. So what that did was allow me to live on my own as well and really get to like mature quickly, right? Gotta pay bills. What about groceries? What about food? How are you getting to class? You got your job. You're a shift lead now. Like, you got a lot of responsibility. I had a lot of responsibilities at 18, 19 years old.
It is.
So it was just like, wow. But what really made me thankful that I went to Black Hawk was because my dad was still in the area. He was a truck driver. But when COVID hit, that's when I had graduated. And unfortunately, he had passed away. So in 2020, I was just in this situation where it was like, man, my dad had just passed away. But I kind of reflected and was like, man, like if I would have went to Iowa, Georgia State, University of Illinois, I would never got to spend that time, one, at Black Hawk, but two, being near my dad and getting that support in that crucial time of my life. So that ended up translating to me going to St. Ambrose. And the St. Ambrose story is even crazier. And I feel like God's really been working in my life. And it's just like, for the listeners listening, like, things will work out. Things will work out. You just have that patience. Because when I was at Black Hawk, guess where I wanted to go again? That big school, Iowa. Did a visit to Iowa, did a visit to Iowa State, Illinois. I got accepted to Iowa and Iowa State. And my plan was to go to University of Iowa. I was going to go to Tippie School of Business. I actually, on my visit, got in touch with the ambassador program and some of the people in the College of Business. And I was going to get plugged in and stuff.
You're thinking, I'm set, man.
Set. Dad was on the visit. Fast forward, though, after that visit. So that visit was in November of 2019. In December of 2019, I had got a call from a mentor of mine in the area. And this actually happened while I was doing my Chick-fil-A internship that summer. I had went to a volunteer event where I was just kind of getting mentored, but also I was mentoring young Black men in the community, right? Just to show them, hey, like, there's more than just sports and entertainment. Like, hey, we're getting our college degrees. They had financial advisors. We had presidents of colleges, like executives at banks and nonprofits. So we're just showing them, hey, like, if we can do it, you can do it too. So we were doing this mentoring program, and my mentor said, hey, like, I would love for you to be here. And I remember that day because I had my roommate at Black Hawk who was also knew that mentor that told us to come to this event. So the crazy thing about that is I remember football was on. So it was a Sunday. And I remember the Falcons were playing, and I'm a big Falcons fan, big football guy.
Well, sure.
And we were planning to go to the beat-ups, right? Buffalo Wild Wings, just to, kick it and just eat some wings and watch the game. I'm like, no, we got to go to this event, man. Like this game will be here. It was just something in my heart telling me, like, go to this event. Because of me going to that event, like I said, fast forwarding now back to 2019 in December, after I did my visit to Iowa and got accepted and actually told him I was going to go to Iowa, this mentor called me and said, hey, like, you did such a great job at this event. Like, I know you told me about going to Iowa and stuff, but I have this immaculate, like, opportunity for you. We partnered with a local community bank, the United Way in the area, and a college, and we want to offer you a full ride scholarship to St. Ambrose University, which will lead to an internship at Quad City Bank. We're going to get to learn about banking, finance, and increase your leadership skills. Yeah. Jeff, when I tell you, I was just blown away because it was just like I was stressed about Iowa because I was actually out of state because I was in Illinois.
Which runs your cost higher.
Higher. Yeah. And I remember back, I was praying to God about, hey, like, what can I do to lower my costs? Because I knew like I didn't want to take out loans. I already got this full ride scholarship from Blackhawk, and I had cash in my pocket at Blackhawk, right?
Just keep it that way, right?
Yeah. $5,000-$10,000. Like I had that type of money at Blackhawk, and I was just like, okay, like I don't want to have to put that all towards loans. So God, like if I'm supposed to go to Iowa, like let's figure out how I can get in-state and all that. That led to a full ride scholarship though, which then allowed me to get mentored from John Anderson, another mentor of mine, and he's the one that gave me the full ride scholarship. That led to me learning about banking, right? And just the importance of finance, real estate, loans, operations, all that. But then that also got me connected to strengths.
Yeah.
And Gallup, right? In that role.
In that context.
Right? Yeah. And then getting plugged in at St. Ambrose, got into the sales program. I was a finance major. I was with the Black Student Union, student government. So I got plugged in there. But that all came back, like if you listen, and like that all came back to the one decision I made to go to Blackhawk, stay in the area, kind of listen to where God's telling me to go. Because I was praying, I was like, I want to go to Iowa, God. Like, I want to go to these bigger schools.
Don't you know my plans
Come
here?
on. But it was just like that all happened for a reason. Yeah. I was meant to be at Blackhawk. I was meant to go to that volunteer opportunity. I was meant to meet that mentor that got me connected to a whole bunch of people that then led to now I'm 25 years old, debt free.
How about
own a couple real estate properties in the stock market, doing speaking stuff. But it all came
later. But as a result of that seemingly small decision to engage others at this community event, and that's where your paths crossed with someone who could really help change the course of your education and your life too, as well. Yeah. Man, that's terrific. Yeah. You'd shared that with me before, so I'm like, man, we've got to get that down.
Yeah.
So, so you have people invest in you from early high school days and on along the way. And one of the things I love is that as you've benefited from that, I see your desire to do that as well. You've had opportunities to do a lot of speaking and even came to my sales course at the university and talked to the students there. And, your passion showed up for them. Absolutely. And I think it's so encouraging to see someone who is in the mid-20s doing the things that you're doing. And that helps other students who are similar age, maybe 3, 4, 5 years behind you going, just like you said with the mentoring program back in the Quad Cities. Well, man, you're doing this. Maybe I can do this. Why not? Why not me? Ty's figuring this out with mentors and input from other people. So I think that's just such a great statement for young and emerging leaders. And that's really, really something that's important to me because I've been around a long time. And the only legacy any of us have is the investment we make in other people. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So we help them figure some things out, and then they can keep passing that baton on to others. And so I love that about your story. So could we talk a little bit about strengths?
Let's do it.
I thought you'd say
Let's do it.
So you referenced that during some of the college years and your interactions at the bank, that was when you had an opportunity to get some exposure to the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And tell us a little bit more about that. And was that like, hey, this is part of our development program at the bank, take this. What did that look like?
Yeah. So one thing about me is I'm always curious and always one to like, let me just get to this event. Let me go to this room. Let me meet people. Let me figure out what they're doing and how can I impact them and impact the community. And I think that came, like I said, the first question we asked when we got here, right? I saw other mentors doing that for me. So it would be really a disservice I didn't do that for others. Yeah. So back in I think it was actually in high school, I had to go back. And now that we're talking about it, I mentioned two Johns already. Mm-hmm. There's a third John that's also my mentor by the name of John Sexton, who is a strength coach in the Quad City area. He works at a credit union right now, but used to work at a college. So I remember he was one of those people on LinkedIn, always in the community, and he was always doing some great stuff. And I was just like, man, like I see him around, like, let me get coffee with them. Right? Let me reach out. One of the things before my dad passed away that he always told me was a closed mouth never gets fed. Closed mouth never gets fed. So if you don't ask questions, if you don't ask to meet for coffee, if you don't ask to get involved in different things, if you don't ask how can I become debt free, like if you don't ask those questions, like nobody's gonna know. So I remember I was like, man, like let me just meet with him and see what he talks about.
You say no, and I never say no to somebody like that, like you, or like that reaches out and says, hey, could I have a half hour of your time, whatever? I'm sure, I'd love to.
And that's the listeners, I need y'all to hear that. Like, if you be intentional and strategic when you reach out to people, like people want to help. Like that's one thing I realized is like, if you are engaging, like, hey Jeff, like I see your great stuff. Hey John, I see what you're doing. Like I would love to like learn how I can impact people. Like people want to help. Like if somebody reached out to me and said, hey, like I've seen your stuff. Like I want to figure out how to 10x my leadership or get into strengths or get into real estate, whatever it is. Let's do it. Let's meet up.
Sure.
So for you guys, like continue to do that in your life. Because what I ended up doing was talking to him at a coffee meetup. That led to me getting invited to one of his events at the credit union where he brought Clifton Strengths coaches from Gallup.
Yes.
Right? Micah and Jim Collison that came down.
Yeah. And
it's crazy because they came in, and this is another thing.
They're the real deal, man.
They're the real deal.
Yeah, they are.
So here's a funny story about that. So at that event, Micah, she came in and talked about strength and resilience. And I was just like, okay, cool. Like I don't even know what strengths is, but you know, you need strength and resilience. Like you gotta be resilient. Love what she was saying though, because like I said, I'm always a big leadership, caring, customer service type of guy. So she's telling me about this workshop she's doing outside of this. And I'm just like, man, this will be cool. So after everyone's done, so this is a hack for you guys at events, stay and be the last one at the event, because I was one of the last ones to leave that event because I wanted to make sure to talk to that speaker.
You can have some interaction.
So I'm talking to her and I'm just like, hey, like, I love what you're talking about. Like John told me a little bit about strengths, but I would love to do do the course to figure out how I can do it. At that time, I don't know how much she was charged. I don't know if it was $1,000, $500. I don't know what the cost was, but she gave me a code to do it for free. So this goes back to what I'm telling you guys of like, when you're curious and you want to learn, people will help you. So I ended up doing that, going to this strength and resilience course and workshop. That's when I took my first assessment. When I took that first assessment, it was at a crucial part of my life because I was at the bank. And it wasn't that I didn't like banking, right? But a lot of my strengths that I ended up realizing were doing stuff in the community, volunteering, meeting people, my top 5, right? Futuristic, competition, strategic, significance, like all those, I realized, I was like, man, like this makes sense why some of my roles I was doing at the bank, I was kind of behind the scenes. I was put away. Like I wasn't customer facing. I was doing operational stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. Some people are great at that. That have the strategic thinking.
The best match for your gifts.
So then as I'm taking this course with her, I'm like, what am I doing? I need to start getting, and because it was so funny because outside of the bank, I was on boards, I was going to events.
People, man.
You have to. I'm doing committees. I'm involved. Like I told you, I was involved in Blackhawk. I was involved in Ambrose. Since I've gotten here to Kankakee, I've been getting involved in stuff. But that's one thing I realized, like, I have to do because of my strengths. So as I'm taking that and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, like, this is a game changer. Why hasn't anyone else, like, why are none of my friends or other people in my life doing this?
From this before.
I'm just like, what? Because now what it did was allowed me to know, okay, what does Ty's personal success look like? What does Ty's leadership skills look like? Because going back to what we said about care, love, and leadership, relationship building themes lead with that. That doesn't mean strategic thinking skills don't lead for that. Like don't lead with that. Because one of my best friends, he leads with learner. That's how he cares. He wants to ask questions, right? That's 3 for, look.
That's 3 for me,
So now they're asking questions to figure out more about you versus someone else like me who has positivity. You're going to be like, oh man, this guy's super engaged. Like positivity is like 7 for me, right? So you're going to see that through my, he's super energetic, like he's super caring, all that. I have included, right? I want to make sure people are included. My woo, right? I want to be like, so it's all different. It's all working together. So as I took that assessment, I fell in love with strengths, which then allowed me to go. And at that workshop that Micah hosted, she talked about the Gallup Summit. I'm like, I got to be there. I got to be in the room.
It's a great event.
How can I get in the room? So as I got in the room at that event, now I'm surrounded by all other Clifton Strength coaches, right? And then that's how we got in contact because I'm like, like my fiance, my future wife lives in this area. And I'm like, okay, are there any other coaches? Oh, Jeff Williamson, Olivet.
Actually had her in class, fundraising class years back. So now that's how we got connected. But then that's 10x everything that I'm doing now because now I realize what is Ty and who is Ty? Not who I'm trying to compare myself to Jeff or I'm trying to compare myself to John. Like, no, like I know who I am. So now I can set up my
career and my journey and my day to day, week to week, month to month. And I know for me, right, I got to get to conferences.
Yeah,
I got to be on boards where I can use my futuristic and strategic skills. That goes with my next generation consulting and think like a future stuff that I'm doing that we'll talk about later. But that's all like made me realize, oh my gosh, like here's what I need to be doing. So if any of your listeners haven't done an assessment, like make sure to go to Jeff. Like he's a coach. Like I can assist you, but knowing your strengths will 10x everything you have going on, because you won't be comparing to other people and trying to figure out, okay, why am I not like Ty and trying to go to all these, like that might not be you. Woo might be 34 for you.
Yeah, I can't figure that out. You know, I know it's possible, but
you know what I mean? So
yeah. By the way, shout out to Micah Lee Brandt, Jim Collison.
Yes.
Who have both served at Gallup as well, and you referenced them earlier, so we'll want to make sure we give them credit due for their contributions to your strengths journey. Good stuff for sure. Well, you know, the time rush goes so fast. I never cease to be amazed when I'm sitting down and doing these interviews with people. I check the time and I'm like, no, it hasn't been a half hour already, but it has been. So we'll go ahead and land the plane here, and look forward to having you back for another conversation here in the near future. So just kind of close this out. What would be one more thought that you would have, whether it's strengths or showing up or reaching out or being involved in the community? What would be one last parting comment and encouragement you would have for our listeners?
Yeah, one of the things I always say, your level of exposure is going to determine your level of success. So the exposure that you get to a podcast like this, workshops like strengths, financial literacy, leadership, whatever it might be, books, mentors, going to college, education, like the exposure has changed the game, because like I said, I got exposed at 18, 19, 16, 17, 18 at Chick-fil-A, at Black Hawk, at Ambrose, at the bank, United Way. But I've gotten exposed, and that's led to me being very successful, and God willing, me being like very successful at 25. But that's not on accident. That's because I got exposed to mentors, events, and other things like that. So continue to be in the room, continue to go to events, do what your strengths are, but you have to get exposure to that. And I think that will change the game for your leadership.
Terrific. Well, that's a good landing for us. We'll close with that. Thanks for joining us on Leadership Level Up podcast. Hope you'll tune in on all the platforms and catch this and future episodes. Thanks. Thanks for listening to Leadership Level Up. Please subscribe so you don't miss future conversations with great leaders. If you would like to learn more about executive coaching and team development, please go to convergegroup.io for more information.